Hi again guys, and welcome to another specific car review for Gran Turismo Sport, and this time we are returning to the SuperSports overall review series where we feature the cars that fall between full-on supercar but are at the same time definitely a step above your average sports car. And this is a perfect vehicle for this kind of category, and not just for this category but a very significant car on Gran Turismo as a whole. Because, of course, for a very long time, pretty much Gran Turismo's entire history in fact, there are two companies in particular which the vast majority of players have always wanted to have on the game, and they were Ferrari and Porsche. Ferrari, of course, came in with Gran Turismo 5 in particular, and now with Gran Turismo Sport, we finally have official Porsche models in the Gran Turismo franchise. Not roofs, not these Porsche-based tuning models. Not that roofs are bad. Gran Turismo 2 in particular had a very strong selection of roof models, but for understandable reasons, people have always wanted the actual, get it via the source, if you will, Porsche model. And a model range, not just one or two. So, Polyphony replied. They've got Porsche in the game now. We've got a couple of racing models with the RSR version of this, the normal version, which is this car, normal of course being a fairly relative term, the Cayman Group 4 machine, and of course the 919 LMP hybrid, which we're going to be reviewing very soon on this channel. Now this car is the only street level Porsche in the game. At least at the moment. It's the 911 GT3 RS, in particular the 991 generation 911. Now this car has the kind of numbers that you would typically expect of more of a supersport model than say a roof would have. A roof tends to have supercar numbers, especially stuff like the Yellowbird or the CTR2, in terms of performance in particular, but sometimes in terms of power, weight, price, that kind of thing also. This one has a high price, it's just over 250,000 credits, but at the same time that's not ridiculous in Gran Turismo Sport terms. That's pretty well placed against stuff like the Lamborghini Huracan, the Ferrari 458, and a number of others. So for that cool 253,000 credits, what do you get from the first road-going Porsche ever to feature on Gran Turismo? Because understandably, the bar for this car is pretty high. People expect a lot from it because people have wanted it for so long. Not this one specifically necessarily, but this is the one that we've got. Well, you get a 4-litre engine, because this is of course one of the 911s to move into the larger capacity after running around 3.6 litres for many years. And that 4-litre engine puts out some pretty good numbers. Porsches aren't typically known for massive amounts of torque anyway, but 340 pound-feet is enough to get the job done for sure. And the power is just under 500 as standard, 491 straight out of the box. Now the weight isn't quite as low as you might hope, but it's not a race car. At the end of the day, it weighs 1,420 kilos. Which isn't bad. That's a lot lighter, for instance, than, say, a 918 Spider. So it's not bad. It's not an all-wheel drive model. It is a rear-engine, rear-wheel drive Porsche, which sets it apart again from some of the other roof models like the CTR2. And in terms of how this car actually performs, it's considerably different to any of the roof models which have been featured on Gran Turismo, because the newest of all of the roof models was based on the 996 generation 911. Which is over a decade old. This one is much newer, it's got much newer tech, it's been revised so much, and even though, of course, it's an ongoing joke that the essential shape of the 911 doesn't really change that much, the performance that it gets, the numbers that it has, of course the technology behind it, does change with every new generation. And that is definitely the case here, because even though this GT3 doesn't have significantly more power, for instance, than the Yellowbird, it's a much, much better car around the track. That's the kind of difference that 30, 40 years can make in terms of development. The handling is so much better on this car than pretty much all of the roofs, I would say. Unless, of course, you really heavily modify those roof models. If you fit your race brakes, your race suspension, drop the weight, increase the tyre potential, for instance, by fitting racing tyres instead of comfort softs or sports tyres. This one is better already, so when you upgrade it in the game, make it a bit lighter, a bit more powerful, change the tyres, it just gets better from there. It's already better stock, which is a pretty good harbinger of things to come. So what's it like around the track? Well, as I said, it's definitely better. The handling is a lot more beginner-friendly than I was expecting it to be honest, given that this is a more hardcore version. That's the whole point of the GT3, and even more so, the GT3 RS. It's not quite as mad as the GT2, but still, the GT3 RS is kind of the benchmark of hardcore 911 models. It's not really a mainstream one, but it's certainly more accessible than the GT2, and a lot more beginner friendly as well. The GT2 is the completely insane version. This is slightly cocaine level, but not totally insane. The handling is fantastic as far as I'm concerned. It's got a little bit of lightness over the front end when you bridge a crest. For instance, here at Willow Springs, there's a particular corner where it's a slowly curving right-hander towards the end of the track where you do go over a little bit of a crest, and you can feel the front end get a little bit loose, a little bit squirrely, nothing that you can't control with a little bit less throttle, but it's there, it's to be noted, and of course that will affect you on certain circuits more than others. The Nordschleife, for instance, there is quite a big crest that you jump on a relatively early section of that lap, and under circumstances like that, you'll need to just drop off the throttle a little bit earlier, maybe brake a little bit, perhaps. You don't need to, but you could, and it'll pretty much solve that issue. It's not even that big of an issue, it's just something that you can feel very readily. If it were a 911 Turbo, for instance, not only would you have all-wheel drive, but you'd also have the associated extra weight over the front end from having an all-wheel drive setup. This one doesn't have that benefit. Of course, the main benefit of not having that benefit, as a counter-benefit, if you can follow me, is that the weight is a little bit lower, and that's a great advantage to have. The GT3 was always the more professional approach, whereas the Turbo was more of an all-rounder, with handling, but not perfect handling, and straight-line performance, but not perfect straight-line performance. The GT2, again, was designed to kind of have both as much as possible. The GT1 obviously went above and beyond, and the GT3 focuses more on the cornering than the straight line speed. That's always been the case, even from the first generation GT2. That has always been really the goal of the GT3 and also the GT3 RS, to be much more of a cornering based, track friendly machine. It's very at home on any circuit that you take it on, be it a city track, a more twisting technical circuit, for instance, or even here, which is not really a technical track, it's more of a high-speed flow kind of circuit. In terms of straight line performance, it doesn't have the sheer power, for instance, of a 458 or a Huracan, but it's not slow, that's for sure. And there aren't that many tracks on GT Sport in particular where you'll notice a big difference. The Le Mans, as far as I know, isn't on the game yet. That's the kind of place where you will notice the lack of top-end power, but on most tracks, the handling more than makes up for it. So overall, it's certainly a fantastic kick-off to the first of the road-going Porsche models in the Gran Turismo franchise, and if you get the chance to pick it up, $250,000 isn't a ridiculous amount, so I'd definitely recommend doing so. But that's it for this pick overall. I'll see you guys next time, and as always, thanks for watching.